You're listening to the Tuesday Review live on 98.9 Northwest FM. I'm Nathan, as always, joined by James. How you going, James? What's something that's made you happy this week?
I took my mum to see A Complete Unknown, the Bob Dylan movie.
Oh, yeah. Was it good?
It's pretty good. We both really liked it.
Good.
Yeah.
Also joined by our favourite AI chatbot, Mr. Alan Medib. How you going, Alan? What's something that's made you happy this week?
I'm doing all right. I'm also having a bit of a struggle sesh. I was able to leverage my company's discount to get myself a car battery for well under retail price.
Very good. Also joined by Callum. Hang on, Callum. What's something that's made you happy recently?
Cobra Kai. Finished Cobra Kai.
Nice.
That was excellent.
Once we all finish it, we'll talk about it on the show.
Well, I said to Nathan, I feel like I need to rewatch the OG movie now. Like, go back to the beginning, you know.
It's never a bad time.
Never a bad time to rewatch that.
As for something that's made me happy, I would say I'm split between two things. One we'll bring up soon.
Mm-hmm.
But what's made me happy, one of the things that's made me happy this week is, I guess, wrestling spoilers. John Cena turned heel and became a very bad man, and that makes me happy in the wrestling.
Which
has been a long time coming.
For those who don't know, he's always been...
He's a perennial good guy,
yeah.
Hero to the kids, he's Mr. Make-A-Wish, all those kinds of things.
And people, I mean, has he said he's close to retiring, or people have just inferred that?
He's on his retirement tour.
Yeah, he's on his last year of wrestling.
But, so that's what's so shocking is that, like, he's turned heel right at the end of his career.
Which is also the best time to do it, right? Because it's like, why not, I guess, do everything now?
Especially because it gets, I guess, it must get boring doing the same thing over and over again, and then,
Also, he can use his acting skills to really sell his villainous side. Because, well, no, it sounds like I'm joking, but if you look up the footage of him when The Rock gives him the thumbs up to turn bad guy, his face changes. It's like a different guy. And it's like, that's actor Cena. You know what I mean? And we always say on the show, like,
he had to go off and do movies just to come back and...
the hierarchy of actor wrestlers goes Batista at the top, Cena underneath, and then The Rock on the bottom. So, it's
Man, nice. I like Stone Cold somewhere in the middle.
You see, you like all those bargain basement movies, the bargain bin movies?
No, just the one called Damage, where his main move is just to punch people in the chest.
What about Dean Ambrose? Wasn't he in that movie where he's a cop?
Yeah.
There's a ton of those kind
WWE movies.
Yeah.
B movie kind of. They're all like
There was
Navy
John Cena
Seals.
in the Marine, and then they made the Marine 2 with one of the other wrestlers, and then they made Marine 3 with someone else or something.
There's a bunch of those movies where like wrestlers play like Navy Seals and shit.
Yeah, because the WWE has its own entertainment
division. Yeah,
like movie division.
Moving on.
Don't forget they did a horror movie with Kane called See No Evil.
That's also true.
Yeah.
Oh, we should watch that and talk about it. Or not.
They got to make a movie about Harriet Tubman with Cody Rhodes in it.
Yeah, that's it.
Is that a reference to something?
There's a strong sentiment among the memers.
Oh yes.
Cody Rhodes is a black icon despite
being white.
Yeah.
We talked about that.
The same way that people call Bill Clinton a black icon.
Because he can play it.
That's like a 90s reference, but like that was huge in the 90s.
Yeah.
Oh my god. All right, let's move on.
Moving on. So the Oscars happen, of which none of the movies we just talked about would apply.
All the WWE movies.
They can only dream.
The Razzies, maybe, but
the Oscars actually kind of turned out for us this year a little bit in terms of the movies that won.
We've talked before. The Oscars we've talked about it before. The Oscars is a joke. It's a load of shit.
Except this time it's legit.
However, we have also talked about how it's nice when a movie that is actually good and that you like gets recognition. And it's still an important part of the industry, like it or not, I guess. And this year, Conan crushed it as the host. He's probably the best host since Billy Crystal. He had great, like, Conan-esque, old school Conan bits.
Well, yeah, that's what I saw. Like, it's funny you say he was the best since Billy Crystal. So it's like an older style of comedy.
Yeah, so he's he's an entertainer, and his jokes were actually funny. And also, one of the reasons Conan is great is because his bits are just so like.
Well, he's a classic comedy writer too.
Yeah,
It's
like
not
the
just
sandworm, the
Yeah.
Dune sandworm bit, and like there was like a whole bunch of old references, and yeah, it was just he did a good job.
Yeah.
And Nora and Sean Baker crushing it. It's good to see.
Which is what we wanted. That's the
Yeah.
other thing that made me happy.
Yeah, I mean there were other good movies that were nominated, but
I wouldn't have put money on Honora winning.
yeah, it was a weird year. It's like I wasn't really sure. Like Brutalist definitely could have won, but yeah, I don't know.
But I would have thought, people might have found Honora too vulgar. I'm like, in the kind of the people that vote
Yeah.
on these movies.
pearl
like,
clutches.
Yeah, I think now because they used the Oscar voting for the last couple of years has been ranked choice voting, whereas before it was just you pick what you want to win. So that has kind of spreads the odds, yeah. And also I guess the industry slowly becoming, they've changed the voting, who can vote, so it's more diverse now. And I guess slowly as older people
it's affecting
pass
change,
away
yeah.
or retire, you have got some other people. So now we're finally seeing maybe probably a better representation of what people
what
want.
the film nerds want.
Yeah, rather than just whatever. It's still Hollywood, patting themselves on the back, and it's a load of crap. And there were a whole bunch of movies that didn't get nominated that should have been. But yeah, it's this year was less of a shit show than a lot of the previous
Coppola
years.
got snubbed.
Yeah.
He won a Razzie though, and he embraced it.
Yeah, man.
Did you read his post about it?
Yeah.
I was like, wow.
Good on him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
5-star movie for me.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I don't care what
Um,
anyone says. Shut up.
Highlights for me were Brody winning Best Actor, Adrian Brody for The Brutalist.
You haven't even seen The Brutalist.
No, but I like Adrian Brody, so it's nice to see him win.
Okay, fair enough. His speech was longer than the movie.
Kieran Culkin, I haven't seen A Real Pain, but
Yeah.
he won Best Supporting Actor. Again,
great.
it's nice to see him win.
Yeah.
And No Other Land, a documentary I haven't seen, but about the drama in the Middle East.
Yeah.
It was nice to see that win because that's not something that's really echoed in mainstream media. Is that the side of the civilians in Palestine side of the tale?
Yeah.
So that was nice.
Yeah.
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 So overall, we're pretty happy.
Well, as
As
happy
far
you
as
can
we
be
can,
as
yeah.
this giant
Giant wank fest.
wank fest, yeah,
Although
owned by
props
Disney.
to
And
Adam Sandler.
that was a funny bit. See, Conan,
Yeah.
so good. He's so good. They should just get him back every year now until something changes. But yeah, so not a complete shit show, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Moving on, we did a double feature we've been talking about doing for a while.
Yeah, I actually wrote it down. Way back in episode 203, in early June of 2024, Nathan talked about the First Omen, which he said he really liked, and then I was like, oh, we should all watch it. But then Immaculate, which has a very, very similar premise, also came out around the same time, and I was like, we should do a double feature, sort of.
It's a very specific niche. It's like it's a double feature of like kind of gothic nun-based satanic horror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Antichrist
Yeah.
being born sort of thing, yeah.
Nun horror.
Yeah.
But not just nun
like the
horror.
Nun though.
Yeah.
You know that movie, The Nun.
no,
Oh, yeah,
not
yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
It's like what's the word for where they live?
Convent?
Convent. Yeah.
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 Convent-based horror.
It's also last year was also a year where there were other movies in addition to Immaculate and First Omen. There were other like Antichrist monster baby movies. There was Azrael.
Yeah.
There was Apartment 7A, which was the prequel to Rosemary's Baby. And I haven't seen it yet, but Nathan has. Apparently, Alien Romulus has like a weird alien hybrid baby moment being birthed.
Yeah, sort of.
Yeah.
So as a quick aside, I looked up The Omen on Tubi earlier today,
Yeah.
and man, let me tell you, the random child Antichrist movies insane.
Oh yeah.
There's like hundreds of like
Bottom
random,
of the
like,
barrel.
yeah. There's like
horror
like
movie
Baby
rip-offs.
Satan 666 the movie.
Yeah.
And you're like, I kind of want to watch all of these.
Yeah. I mean, it's anytime there's a successful movie like The Exorcist or
They
The
cash
Omen.
in, yeah.
Yeah, it's like you can find so many movies about Exorcist or with Exorcist in the title. It's just they just churn them out for no money. Yeah, like real bottom of the barrel stuff. But yeah, so we decided to watch Immaculate and The First Omen because they both came out last year, have very similar premises, and yeah, I guess we'll talk about Immaculate first, but we'll kind of compare them a little bit.
Yeah.
And I don't like. Should we do? I think it's hard to talk about them without spoiling.
I mean,
We have to.
they're over a year old, right?
Yeah.
Or just 6 months ish.
Maybe we'll put a tag that says mild spoilers. We'll see how we go.
Yeah.
Actually, we might more than mild spoilers because the ending of Immaculate is the most interesting part to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
Spoiler
Spoilers.
alert: the Antichrist is born.
Well, in Immaculate, spoiler alert, it is interesting because at the end you find out that I guess it technically wasn't the Antichrist.
Jesus.
It was like a clone of Jesus.
But it's
Spoiler
also
alert.
They believe it'll usher
But-
in the end
but-
of like the revelation, basically.
Yeah.
It's
But
like the
but-
return, of, the literal return
I
of
think-
Christ.
I think that was one of my problems with the movie. It was like, that's an interesting premise, but it's like right at the end they reveal it, and then the movie just kind of ends.
the
and I was
movie.
like,
The movie also raises a kind of question, right? Because the baby has supernatural. You're led to believe the baby has kind of supernatural elements to it, right?
but do we though?
Well,
The extremely quick gestational period.
nah.
no,
it's-
it takes place over
it
months.
takes place
Oh.
over the
yeah,
months.
yeah. They
But
skip
there's kind
time.
of like,
Oh yes, of course they did.
Yeah,
Yeah. Sorry about that.
but she, I don't know, maybe it just could have been like a graphical manifestation of how she was feeling. But there's kind
Yeah.
of like flashes and stuff like that she encounters.
yeah.
That could just be
So that's actually my problem with Immaculate in a nutshell.
Mm.
Is I think it's an okay movie. I didn't hate it, but the scares that it has are quick jump scares.
Mm.
Again, at this point in my life, I've seen God knows how many jump scares.
Yeah.
We're in the year 2025. I mean, this was a 2023 production.
Four.
If it released 24.
Release 24. Yeah.
Yeah, get over it. Jump scares are old now. Like let's try and pivot to
I will say.
new horror.
I will say it's not the most egregious example
no.
of jump scares in a horror movie. It's not.
No, that's
Awful.
not.
but what
And also people lingering. Again, how many times do we have to see people lingering
Yeah.
ominously in the convent?
Immaculate is definitely a movie I feel like I had seen everything in it
Yeah.
before.
That's my issue.
You know, it's a Sydney Sweeney plays a young American nun who gets an opportunity to go to a convent in Italy.
I also thought this movie was almost a period piece until the priest.
That's what I thought.
Until
Yeah,
the priest is driving,
especially
down
the
and they get
opening
a-
scene.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It looks like they could be like kind of World War
1970s or
II era
something, yeah.
uniforms
Yeah,
and
it's
stuff
old.
like that.
Yeah,
Until I thought it was a period piece all the way until there's a car scene and someone gets a call on a mobile phone. I was like, wait a
I
second.
noticed when she gets off the train, there's a guy on his phone in the background. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah,
I didn't notice that.
yeah.
Anyway,
And there was a guy wearing sneakers that were very not
yeah.
period. And I was like, hey, was that a mistake? I was like, oh
Um,
no, that.
As I was saying, I did think it's interesting going back to what you were saying about the clone of Jesus thing, because is the idea meant to be that is Jesus the bad guy in this movie? Is the clone of Jesus meant to be an evil force?
Well, that's the thing is,
So in
I think it's so vague that
in Revelation, Jesus comes back, and when he comes back as the lion, not the lamb, in quotation marks, and he's going to kill all the people that don't believe in him, and whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm presuming my assumption was that by bringing a clone of Jesus into the world, this triggers that.
the second coming, Jesus is supposed to come back when the world ends and
like
save all the
Yeah.
souls who are worth saving.
It's like
and
forcing
everyone
Jesus
else.
to return
But-
by a
But
technicality.
The movie is very slight in the fact that for me, maybe I misinterpreted it, but it slanted more towards the science fiction side of
yeah.
the impregnation wasn't supernatural.
No, it was
And
purpose.
yeah, it was. They got the DNA from the nail that pierced
But
Christ's hand.
But what if the DNA was just on like a Roman soldier?
That
That's
would
the
be
conceit.
interesting.
That's the
Yeah.
conceit of the film, though.
Yeah, but again, like that's the most interesting part of the movie, and
Yeah.
that's the reveal at the end that this is not a Rosemary's Baby situation or an Omen situation, where the whole movie and from the trailer and premise you think this nun has been impregnated with the Antichrist or the devil's baby, whatever.
Yeah.
But then it's revealed that actually the priests here have used science to
Bring
put-
back Jesus.
bring back Jesus and impregnate her. And I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. But yeah, that's the reveal at the end, and then the movie ends. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I don't know what else you could do with it, but I thought that was interesting.
I think that the thing I didn't like about it was it talks about it has I'm gonna butcher this. Theological elements, but it doesn't lean into them hard enough. It has horror elements. It doesn't lean into them hard enough. It does a little bit here and there of like what you want in a film like this, but it doesn't really sink into what you need it to sink into to be effective. It's nice looking.
Yeah, I was gonna say it looked
I like
pretty
the
nice.
costume design.
Yeah.
The cinematography is fine.
Mm.
Like the First Omen is markedly better in design, production, cinematography to me. I think it looks way
I
better.
think they both look nice.
But when you like a lot of these movies, especially like the pregnancy horror movies, it's you could argue that it's a metaphor for how horrific it is to be a mother or to go through pregnancy, have something growing inside you,
and especially in these cases, like the
if it's forced on you,
the patriarchy and
But I think there's something so interesting about taking the demonic baby thing we've seen a million times. The holy baby is a different kind of film. Like, what does that film look like?
Yeah.
In an alternate version of this film, where it's made clear that she's carrying Jesus' baby from the get-go, Jesus' baby, a baby Jesus from the get-go. And then what happens if you heighten that reality? So suddenly she can do things and heal people or whatever. Then you can say maybe the forces of darkness are trying to stop that baby from coming back. So you have a
that
villain
would be
angle.
interesting.
But then you can also play the fervent believer card, right? Where you could have maybe the enemy becomes the Catholic Church or the believers as they try and get to her. And, maybe some people want to get rid of her because they believe she's a
abomination.
Yeah, so I think that you have fertile ground for a really interesting story to be told about the Holy Baby.
Yeah.
Because,
you get to subvert the
subvert
Antichrist.
that.
Yeah, and instead they just did the typical Antichrist thing. But then at the end, we're like, surprise! It's not supernatural. It's science. It's not the devil. It's Jesus. And the end. Because I was like, wait a second.
We've already grappled with the idea of what does it mean to carry Satan's baby. But I'm like, what kind of psychology can you play with by being like, I'm literally carrying God inside me?
Yeah, I mean, if she volunteered for it, that would make it an even different movie, Like,
even if she didn't, there's this what is you know what I mean? When you have the power of good in you, and it's on one hand it's forced on her, but on the other hand she can heal or she can do this.
Well, that's what's interesting about the end of the movie is spoiler again. We'll put spoiler in the description, but at the end of the movie she gives birth. And you don't see the baby, but it looks maybe a little bit deformed or whatever. But I personally didn't think it was an evil baby. It was just a deformed experiment.
Was it deformed?
You don't really see it. It's there's a faraway shot and it's kind of bloody, and you can't really see if it's. They were looking at it in a ultrasound, and they said it looked normal. So it might have just been a straight up normal baby. But yeah. Spoiler again.
Holy baby.
Holy baby.
Straight up normal holy baby.
That's a holy baby to you.
Spoiler again. But she gives birth and then she's like, she kills it.
Yeah, coffee tables.
Yeah. Spoiler alert. But and I was like, that's pretty bold. That's a bold move. and I appreciate it that like this was forced upon her.
That's why I like
And,
the last act.
Yeah, and people have been talking about like it's a very, I guess, pro-choice kind of decision.
Yeah.
But I'm like, the movie leading up to that, it doesn't. There's nothing that explores that idea, or
well, the problem
it's
is
just. I think that last section was well done, but everything before that is pretty by the numbers.
Yeah. What I find interesting is she ultimately decides to stop, like end the baby. But it's made clear to her that baby will become the end of the world anyway.
But again, like, is it though?
Yeah, it's like that technicality of like, we're going to bring Jesus back whether he likes it or not.
Yeah, and it's like, and again, because I'm like, it's the science, not the supernatural. I was like, would the quote unquote second coming trigger the apocalypse in this case? They don't really explore that.
It would have been interesting if they had parallels to the New Testament too, where like as she's getting further along, 3 wise men show up. You know what I mean? Like you could kind of play with it.
Well, yeah, or
maybe like 3 university professors or something.
That'd be funny. Yeah.
I mean, they do that in the Omen.
They bring like
when
textbooks.
When the Antichrist is born, there's the Star of Bethlehem or whatever it's called, the guiding star. But it's like the Antichrist. It's the inverted version or whatever.
It's a black hole.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the movie is like Immaculate is just it's just under 90 minutes. The good thing about it is it doesn't really overstay its welcome. It does what it does and then it ends, and you're kind of like, But I would like for it to be longer and more fleshed out, both for the characters and just the world and the supernatural / science fiction elements in there, and just play with that a bit more. I think one of the big problems is that Sydney Sweeney, I don't think is a particularly great actor.
No.
And I think what's interesting is that, like, for 80 minutes of the movie, like, she's not particularly convincing. But then the last few moments,
she dolls it up.
Yeah, when she's, giving birth and covered in blood and in pain, I'm like, wow, she's really good at this. So it's kind of unfortunate that, when there are dialogue scenes or whatever, it's like she's just kind of meh, and the writing's not great. Yeah. So it's just like most of the movie you're not really invested, but she does knock it out of the park at the end.
Yeah,
she does.
The only thing I want to talk about real quick is there's a moment in the film where I thought things were going to pivot in a really interesting direction, which is where there's a throwaway line in the Bible. Like she sees something on the wall, which makes her open up her Bible, and it says, "Even Lucifer pretends to be an angel of the light," or Satan, I should say. And then I was like, "Oh wow!" I'm like, are they going to make like a certain character, one of the priests? Is he going to turn out to be like a demon or something? And then there's a scene later on where you see him standing like near a door and he's like covered in darkness. I was like, is this the reveal where he's like, but no.
Yeah.
I mean, it is only like a 90-something minute film. Maybe there's kind of more that was on the cutting room floor that would have been interesting.
I don't know, maybe, but I feel like it was conceived this way. It was I feel like it was conceived this way, where it's just like they had this idea and it's just like a simple horror movie.
Yeah.
It feels like maybe there wasn't a lot going on.
Conceptually,
yeah. So it's not a bad movie, but it's not great.
Look, I mean, it's worth watching if you got like 90 minutes to kill and.
Yeah, if you like horror, I mean,
It looks nice. The costumes
looked pretty
nice.
good.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because, I was watching the movie and it's like...
Old people are scary. That's also one of the lessons in the movie.
Oh, that's the other thing is she goes to this convent where it's specifically a convent that like caters to elderly nuns who are...
on their way out.
Basically like a hospice.
It's
like a hospice care.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, and then you get a couple of like there's like a nun with dementia or whatever, and it's like, okay, this is interesting. Is this going to play into what she's
Yeah.
experiencing? And then they just don't mention it ever again, and it's not important at all.
Yeah.
So I was like, I think that would have been interesting as well, is playing with that, of like, you know, the idea of aging and, you know, losing your faculties when you're a person in the church, and then, you know, her going through this horrible thing, and then also at the same time she's in this place that's decaying, both because it's an old building and because the people like
Yeah,
it just
the
it
church
wasn't
being like, sorry ladies, we can't afford healthcare for you. We're too busy defending pedophile cases and spending legal money on that instead.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's another horror movie on its
well,
own.
yeah. Well,
When there's like a desperate convent that needs funding, and they're like, sorry guys, we just spent another $1 million on this guy's case. So,
yeah,
you know,
Cardinal
you
Cardinal
understand.
so and so needs another giant ring.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was frustrated because I was like, it's not bad, but it needed to be fleshed out much more, both in the kind of supernatural sci-fi horror element, but also just the characters needed to be better fleshed out. And it's interesting because then we went on to watch The First Omen, which is a half an hour longer than Immaculate, and that I think deals a lot better
Yeah.
with the
Before
character.
we get into the first Omen,
Yes.
we'll go to a very quick break.
Yes.
And we'll be back with more right after this. You are back on the Tuesday Review live on 98.9 Northwest FM. We're discussing our nun-based conception horror.
Antichrist conception,
Antichrist
yeah.
conception horror, sort of religious.
Double feature.
Religious
2024.
nunnery
Single
Religious-
feature for me. I only
religious
watched,
pregnancy
Which one
movies.
did you watch?
I only watched The First Omen, so now I'll be active in the discussion.
Okay, that's all
Instead of just shit posting.
right.
So we also
Um,
watched the first Omen.
Yeah, so it was interesting watching Immaculate, which is 90 minutes, and being like, this needs a bit more time to flesh out the characters and the world and the lore a bit more. And then watching First Omen
Kind
after
of
it,
does that. a little
which,
bit
yeah,
better.
has an extra half an hour and does that. So that was quite interesting.
I will say also, this movie is more interesting in the fact that it's like a franchise reboot,
Yeah.
prequel kind of thing. Usually, they're not this good.
That's
And-
what that's what was interesting.
I
So
think it helps that there hasn't been a proper entry in this franchise for a long time.
Well,
yeah,
didn't they do that weird TV show that didn't do very well?
there was I think there
Damien,
was 2
yeah.
TV shows, wasn't there?
There was Damien, which was the TV show that is that only has the original movie as canon, and then they made a 2006 reboot of the original film.
Well, there was the remake of the film, but
Yeah,
then
the
there was
2006
wasn't there a
remake,
TV
sorry,
show
yeah.
just called The Omen as well?
Yeah,
No.
there
Maybe
was.
I'm wrong.
Damien.
Was the Omen film the one with the guy from Harry Potter in it? Professor Lupin?
He might be in the remake.
Not
He's not in the
sure.
original.
So when the kid ends up with the president at the end? Or is that a different movie altogether?
No, that's The Omen.
That's the Omen, yeah.
Yeah.
But you might have seen the remake.
I've probably seen the remake.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember it being that old.
Yeah.
74, I believe.
Okay, definitely. I definitely did
76.
not watch the 74 one.
76,
But
yeah.
I also kind of was impressed that, like, the movie,
Yeah.
for
So
being a movie in its position, it did all right.
so when Nathan originally saw this and brought it up on episode 203, I was sort of quote unquote, making fun of Nathan for watching one of those crappy, legacy sequels, or in this case prequels to a classic franchise, and I expected it to be a Exorcist Believer style of just cash
Trash.
grab garbage, yeah. And Nathan was like, no, legitimately, it's really good. And I heard, I read online that, oh no, it's actually good. And so, yeah, it's interesting that this is a legacy prequel to, the classic original Omen movie. And yet it's not a complete
Disaster.
yeah, and it's not a complete there's definitely a cash grab element, but I feel like the filmmakers were doing their best, and it wasn't lazy, and it wasn't egregious or insulting to the original.
No, there are
Um,
definitely some unique moments in this movie that I appreciated. like there's a scene out. Is it in the rain? And there's a car. Like it's close towards the end of the movie, but there's like a
after the
dance
car
kinda thing.
crash. Yeah.
I really appreciated that.
Well, that
Yeah, shades of
we
possession.
mentioned that where it's very heavily inspired by Possession, with
Yeah.
where Isabelle Adjani has that like
Yeah,
fit.
Dance compulsion.
Yeah, and Nell Tiger Free, who plays the nun in this movie, she does that, and it's a really intense scene.
and obviously the birthing scene or the.
Oh
dream,
yeah.
The reason the movie got refused classification a couple
Yeah,
of times.
that was pretty. So I mean, it is interesting that this movie was a studio film. 20th century. They're not Fox anymore, are they? Under Disney.
Yeah.
20th Century Studios or whatever they're
a
called.
mid-budget movie.
Mid-budget movie. Based on this legendary franchise, and yeah, it's interesting that the movie was a little bit dangerous.
A little bit risky, a little bit cheeky as a treat.
Yeah, not overly insane, but there were scenes, especially the birth scene.
There's a couple of explicit moments.
Where they, when they were refused classification, so they had to resubmit it, but they refused to cut it out completely, which good on them. And it's good to see a movie that was a studio movie.
Taking risks. Yeah.
That was like, it's like, again, not insane or anything, but, it's pretty cool to see a movie. It was like, well, yeah, this is a little bit,
I thought the cinematography was excellent in this one.
Yeah, it looked pretty nice.
Looked great.
Yeah.
And also just like the direction.
Apparently it was shot on 35mm. We talked about it.
It has a bit of a grain to it. At least what I thought it did.
I think I appreciate this movie has extras. Like it felt like there's lots of people on set in certain scenes, and
there were a couple of moments where they are in like the piazza in Rome, or at the train station or airport or whatever they were, and there's like people walking around, and I appreciated that, but it's definitely shot in a
isolated
trying to conserve the budget there, but the effort, there's a riot scene. I was like, okay, they put the effort in, and they spent a bit of money on it.
Groped in the riot scene?
She's being attacked and like grabbed by all the protesters, but then isn't it was it a hallucination?
Like a demon hand.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, because then there's a demon. She gets licked by the
she gets licked
demon.
as well,
Yeah. So I think it looked nice. This one is actually a period movie because it's a prequel to The Omen.
Yeah.
So it takes place in the early 70s and ties into the beginning of the original movie. Making a...
And it's got one of our favourite actors in it.
Ralph.
Yeah.
Innocent.
Yeah.
Yep.
Always like to see him.
Who's the guy with the funny voice? Not funny voice, the gruff voice.
Yeah, the really...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like him.
Yeah.
He's in The Witch. The Witch.
Yeah, yeah.
He's got one of those Northern English voices.
It's like very gravelly and... Yeah.
He's got those... This man has definitely been in multiple fights at a pub before.
Yeah.
It is. He's been escorted at the pub by police several times.
It's not his fault. He's English. Leave him alone.
And he plays an Irishman in this movie, so it's like probably...
Barely.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, that's news to me.
Really? He was putting it on.
You
didn't notice?
No.
I especially had the starting scene where he's doing a confession
Oh, Charles Dance.
with Charles Dance.
Oh, that was a good scene.
And you see the little bonk on his head, and you're like, oh no. And then he seems okay, but then next thing you know, obviously he's had his wig split, as the kids say these days, I think. Yeah. That was pretty cool. I was like, damn, they're doing stuff.
Yeah.
I think it started off stronger for me than it did. Maybe the middle kind of lacked. I don't know. I'm still a bit torn about the movie.
I think Nell Tiger Free is a much better actor than Sydney Sweeney was in Immaculate, and not only is her performance better, but like I was saying, like this movie has more time to flesh out her character a bit more. you get a bit of an idea of her past and her relationships. And there's some stuff where she's teaching the orphans. Oh, that's the other thing. It's funny. Immaculate is about the hospice for the elderly nuns, and the First Omen, the convent, is for like young orphan girls.
Yeah.
So it's like two opposite ends of the life of a nun.
Yeah. The one thing I didn't like about this film is I didn't like the portrayal of the supernatural elements in the film. I think it was kind of lazy. It was kind of the boring, most
one of the most what's the word? I guess I'm just going to use the word important because I can't think of anything else. One of the most important elements of the original Omen is that Richard Donner, the director, was like, when he got the script, he's like, I'm going to cut out all the overtly supernatural stuff, all the depictions of demons and all the magical kind of stuff. And he's like, everything that happens in the film could technically happen. So you're kind of like, is this supernatural? Is it not? It's like, and it ends up being scarier and more threatening because the presence is unseen and it acts through real methods. It kills people.
It's like Final Destination.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas the First Omen is a little bit more overt with showing like creatures and some sort of
my problem is that they
supernatural stuff.
They even describe the creature before you see it. Like, oh, they keep a jackal down there. And like when you see the spoiler alert for First Omen, you see the demon. To use an awkward term for it. Yeah. And it's like a jackal-headed kind of monster-y thing.
It's also a weird CGI, especially at the end when it's on fire and it's unnecessary.
It's brown. And if you've listened to this show before, we complain about brown CG and like that type of thing. Yeah. As soon as I saw it, I was like, ugly brown color CGI.
Flat digital. Uninspired design, I
was talking to Nathan about it after I'd seen the film, and I'm like, you know what I would have done if I was the director and I wanted something to show it something in the film? Semi-invisible entity. Like, like Predator when he's got his cloak on.
I think, Rosemary's Baby is a great example because you see like glimpses of the devil, like creature or whatever.
I only read the book.
You never seen Rosemary's Baby?
I've read the book. I know how it's depicted in the book. You don't see it in the book.
You have to watch the movie. It's so good.
You don't see it in the book. It's interesting. It's only sense perception. It's like the smell of it or the feel of the skin or whatever.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, they definitely could have, shown parts of it, but not the whole thing. Yeah. Or, alternatively, they could have stuck to the original's depiction and, like, not shown it. They also retcon some things in the First Omen where it doesn't really match up to the original. Like in the original movie, Damien, the Antichrist kid, his mother was the jackal. Whereas in this version, the father is the jackal and the mother is the main character.
I think so according to my understanding, that's based on, in the original movie, they dig up the grave and they find the jackal, right?
Yeah.
Playing devil's avocado here. Could they not just explain that away, but like, well, that's not the mother, that's just...
Well, that's the other thing is father...
someone else buried it there.
Father Brennan says the mother was... I was there at the birth, the mother was a jackal. But then in this movie, Father Brennan spends the whole movie trying to fight the cult. The cult. Yeah. And then he wasn't at the birth. And so it's like they changed some things, which again, like, I love the original, but I wasn't pissed off by the changes. I think my biggest problem is that the end of the First Omen, where they're tying it into the original, like, it all of a sudden it goes from a pretty interesting movie, like horror movie, to just like, now we have to tick all the boxes to
I noticed that. Yeah.
to
That
connect
end where it's like, and they gave the baby a name. The Omen looks at the camera.
Baby Omen. Yeah, they're like, his name is Damien. And then it's like, bum, bum, bum.
It
And
reminded me of the end of Star Wars.
yeah. Yeah, so it's like, I feel like this movie would have been better as just a straight reboot. Like, don't try to connect it to the original. Do your own thing. Because they do some interesting things here. Spoiler again, like they introduced that Damien has a twin sister and that there's the other orphan girl who's marked by the 666, the mark of the devil. And so they get away at the end and it's like, okay, setting up a sequel. I'm like, okay, I'd probably watch the second one. I didn't love the First Omen, especially as much as Nathan did. But I was like, I'd watch the second one. But I think I would have enjoyed it more if they were like, we're going to reboot it and it's going to be about the birth. And it's like, oh, it's going to be about twins now, not just Damien.
Yeah.
And, maybe the twins are split and so one's good and one's bad. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. But instead, it's kind of a slave to the original movie because it's set in the 70s and they bring back Father Brennan and they retcon some stuff. And then at the end, they even show a picture of Gregory Peck as Damien's, surrogate adoptive father or whatever. And it's like, okay, this is getting too much into the cash grabby, member berry territory that these legacy sequels and prequels usually get into.
My ultimate feeling is, and this is for both Immaculate and the First Omen, is they're just not weird enough for me. I feel like when you're dealing with whether it be the forces of light with baby Jesus or, Satan and all of his works, it's not human level affairs, right? So like things need to look and feel weird.
Yeah.
In Prince of Darkness by John Carpenter?
Yeah.
There's that whole mirror stuff and like they reach through the mirror and then you see that weird hand reach back. Like to me, that emphasizes the strangeness of it all.
That's such a
because
great...
it's so inhuman. It's so...
Yeah.
It's different.
That's such a great example as well because that movie, takes place mostly within the church. And so, to do a movie like that now, you could do it on a reasonable budget. But that movie just has such, John Carpenter's the GOAT, like has such great atmosphere and of course the music and performances and all that and special effects. But I think one thing I really liked about it is, I won't spoil Prince of Darkness even though we're spoiling everything else, but that reveals something about what's going on that in Immaculate, I was like, oh, they could have done it similar to Prince of Darkness with how, it's all revealed. So yeah, that's a good example. That's a better example of a kind of demon, sort of devil, end of world possession movie, whatever.
Because it doesn't have to be gory or doesn't have to look scary in the way that demon horns and the
devil or creature or demon or whatever doesn't have to be like a fork-tailed, horned
but it just
red
has,
guy.
I just want stuff to be weirder.
Yeah,
I
think
what I mean? More creative about it.
As much as we appreciate the First Omen for, being a little bit more edgy than a lot of other studio films and not being as egregiously horrible as a lot of other legacy sequel and prequels, it still doesn't reinvent the wheel. It doesn't push anything further than we've seen it before. It's still pretty standard stuff. Everything I'd seen in the First Omen I had seen in other movies, not just other Omen movies, but other horror movies or supernatural, whatever. So
I liked it, but
I'm gonna nitpick a little bit too. So when damn it, I forgot her name. Who's the main? What's the nun's name? What was the lady's?
Forget her
Margaret
character. Yeah, Margaret.
Yeah. So when Margaret's first introduced to her housemate, who's also becoming a nun, they go out in the town, and so Margaret's obviously grown up in a convent in America.
Yeah.
She's all very shy and reserved, and like she puts on. I'm assuming, her roommate's stiletto heels.
Yeah.
And she's having all the trouble like balancing and stuff. I'm like, in the first scene of the damn film, she was wearing heels. Yes, they're not stiletto
Were they
heels.
that high though?
They were pretty high. Like they're not stiletto heels, but still, I'm like, oh, sure, she would have some practice.
I'm gonna rewatch the other film.
And then in another scene, she's got heels on again. I'm like, so lady, you had practice. Just saying. But it's a general nitpick. Her accent at one point switched to British when she was yelling.
Yeah.
And I was just like, damn it.
Alan coming in with notes.
No, it's just, the movie just didn't capture me. Like, it started off pretty strong. I liked it. And then, I don't know. It just got, I don't know. It just wasn't doing it for me
Starts
for
to
some reason.
lose steam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I quite liked Ishtar Curry Wilson, just an Australian actress.
Oh, really?
She was the Sister Angelica, the weird one. The one who has a bit of a
licks her face.
a heat problem.
Oh, that's the other thing. It's like when she sets the nanny in the original The Omen hangs herself and is like, this is for you. And they redo that again in this movie, but this time she sets herself on fire, and I was like, okay, that's a bit, on the nose, like whatever.
But I liked her overall character just being that
Creepy.
weird kind of creepy.
Yeah,
I'm like, I'm sure if you're in a convent somewhere, there's probably plenty of creepy people around.
Yeah. Immaculate has a scene like that too, where the lady's like, it should have been me, and then like jumps off or whatever. It's like, so there's a lot of parallels.
Whenever anyone says it should have been me, I just remember the Yu-Gi-Oh meme. Not him, it should have been me. Yeah, but I don't know. The film just.
Who do you think would win in a fight though? Baby Jesus or like the baby Damien?
As babies?
Yeah.
Like fresh out of the womb?
Like toddlers.
Like
toddlers,
newborns?
toddlers.
Oh.
See, this is the movie I want to see next.
Yeah.
Toddlers fighting. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. There was like a daycare that was doing that and they got in trouble, so maybe we don't get toddlers to fight.
But they're not just normal toddlers. They're
exactly
like,
superpowered
they're,
toddlers.
yeah, it's like baby Jesus and baby the devil.
Obviously,
Satan.
the baby Satan would win because baby Jesus would be like, let's not fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, or he might be able to use his light and love to convince the devil, to not fight.
Maybe, yeah.
He can, like, he's got a Care Bear glow from his stomach, and he's just like, and he like shoots out love and peace, and the devil's like, no, and then he becomes nice.
Yeah,
All right,
maybe.
let's write this movie.
What, like God versus the devil?
Yeah, but babies.
Babies? It'd be set in like a daycare where like the parents drop them off and they don't know.
Yeah, it's like
Both
the Antichrist. Yeah,
don't know.
that's the return of Christ and the birth of the
Yeah.
Antichrist, and they're growing up in daycare. The
Yeah.
parents don't know.
And our like thing will be like one of the daycare ladies. She's like a young kind of good looking lady who's like influenced, and she's like trying to get people to see that something is going on. But
No one believes her.
no one believes her.
Yeah,
And that'll be a whole
the main.
thing.
Yeah, the main
The
character
babies
is
are
trying.
smart.
Yeah, it's
fighting.
like it's baby Jesus. And
They're having a
she's like,
conversation.
"You're
One of
crazy."
these babies is turning the water into wine. I'm not drinking at work, I swear.
One of them breathes fire, and the other one.
They're making me look like a drug.
All right, yeah,
You know what? We need to put some copyright on this. I'm
yeah,
liking this,
yeah.
actually.
Copyright Tuesday Review 2025.
Yeah, if you're gonna rip it, send us a check.
Yeah, send us a check.
Enjoy
Holly.
the baby fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So I mean,
I want to have Anya Taylor-Joy as our sister lady, or the lady at the daycare.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah,
choice.
good choice.
Can we
Yeah.
have adult actors play the baby, sir? Like the toddlers?
On there.
The face
little,
is the
little. I like CGI their face onto,
no,
or like,
just grown ups with like nappies on pretending to be baby.
That's messed up, Kel.
Yeah,
But
that's,
the rest
that's
of
a
the
little
world
bit
thinks
too.
it was bad.
We're not kink shaming, but that's a little
I
bit
was
too
gonna-
that's a
far.
different kind of.
I was gonna bring it back to WWE, like John Cena and The Rock in.
Yeah. I was gonna have like just the face CGI, so there's like a goatee and like a mustache kind of thing.
Well, that's what you've seen those memes of JD Vance with the baby face.
Oh yeah.
One like
yeah.
that, kind of like adult actors, just they put the filter on them to make them look like babies.
Yeah.
We are running out of time.
All right, yeah. First Omen, I didn't love as much as Nathan, but I appreciated elements
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
I thought it was
Alan
pretty good.
Stank. But that's
No,
all.
Alan
no,
didn't like it that
like I
much.
said, it's probably like a 2.5 out of 5 star. for me.
I gave it
I-
a 4, I think.
I would give it a 3, maybe.
I
You
thought
gave the other movie a 3.
I think First Omen is better than Immaculate. But I gave Immaculate a 3 just because I like the ending. But Immaculate might be closer to a 2.5.
Okay, that's fair.
But
That's fair. He's just staring at me. I am fair. All right.
I think
Yeah.
I think Immaculate was fine. First Omen was really good. First Omen looks great. The directing is nice. The cinematography is nice. Ultimately, I gave it a 4 out of 5 just because I think it's like a good example of what a prequel / sequel movie could be.
definitely,
Even if it does annoy you at the end with the tie-ins.
I forget the director's name. Akasha Stevens or Akasha Stevenson.
Something like that, yeah.
I think this is her first feature film.
Before
and
that,
so-
she'd done Channel Zero and some other stuff.
Yeah, brand
TV.
new Cherry Flavor. I think she
Yeah.
directed some of that. Like,
That was awesome.
so I mean, for a first film and for a studio legacy prequel, not bad. But yeah, I still could have been better.
We are running out of time, boys.
Um,
we got to wind it up.
Oh, quickly, I rewatched the original Omen. Still amazing. And I want to watch all the sequels because I've never
Yeah, me
seen those
too.
before in the remake.
You can catch the Tuesday Review on all the socials at Tuesday Review AU. It's Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Newsmask, Blue Sky, Twitter, YouTube.
Delete Twitter and the middle platforms.
Substack, the Tuesday Review.
Yeah, follow us on Substack, Blue Sky.
We're on Letterboxd. I'm Nathan B_90.
I'm channeldrifter.
I'm Alan20.
And I come Tuesday.
Rate, review everywhere you can. Give us a
Yeah,
5-star
give us 5
rating.
stars. Even if you don't like the show, just 5 stars will help us a lot.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll be back next week. Adios, cousins.